Does that mean we're agreeing for go? The door is closed and take flight? Oh, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, there we go. We got a little something going on here. This is good. This is good. All right. I know we just ate. All right. But we'll see if we can have a little bit of fun here in the next hour. So the question I have for you is, would you prefer to be interactive or watch 122 slides? Interactive? Okay. I have 22 slides. That's it. But it is an interactive time together. Okay. That puts in perspective sort of possibly why I'm here in your mind. So it's a story of relevance. So my past careers, and you'll get to know that I'm probably about my 26th or 27th career or something like that at this point in time. So I tend to move around and enjoy myself doing a lot of different things. And I started off in the sciences. I actually was going to become a civil engineer. And then I said, oh, I better not do that. That doesn't quite line up with who I am. So I started down the road of forestry. And I went, it's not quite how I am, because for many years I spent time with children around adventure playgrounds, the type of playgrounds where the kids build their playground, right? Not just given to them, but they play, they create it. And that led me down a whole different path, and it'll become obvious here in a second why I'm sharing this story. So, 1987, I ended up in Uganda, which is in Eastern Africa. And I was there to work on an HIV/AIDS health promotion program. You already get the civil engineering to jumping around a little bit, okay? So while I was there, when you are driving along the roads and you come across a rock pile in the middle of the road and there's soldiers around and it's daylight, you come to a screeching stop because that's a roadblock. Right? So we came to a screeching stop. Up to the window comes the soldier and points the Kalashnikov machine gun, and it actually touched the tip of my nose. So if you've ever looked down a gun barrel, it's kind of an eerie feeling, and I'm sitting there going, what's going on here? So the soldier started to ask my driver, because I couldn't communicate with the soldier, where are you going with blah, 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 blah. So my driver's answering, getting me engaged, and I'm looking at the Kalashnikov going, all right, I think I'll just move it over because I'd rather lose my hearing than my head, okay? So I'm pushing over, comes back, pushing over, comes back. Right? So after about a minute, I started to notice something else was happening, all right? What was starting to take place was the gun was starting to wobble, right? The soldiers behind this soldier are starting to laugh, all right? I'm still looking down at trying to answer the questions to my driver, and I'm going back and forth. So I'm about 2 minutes into it. Now the gun's really just a wobbling on me. And I'm thinking, is the safety on? You know, weird things you think about, right, when you're looking down the barrel of Kalashnikov. But it was true. So I just finally went, okay, well, it keeps coming back, but it's now really wobbling. All right, and then eventually my driver says, okay, we're leaving. The soldier's letting us go. And I said, okay. So we're driving away. And I'm sitting in my seat, and I'm looking through the side mirror. Remember, they drive on the other side of the road? Okay. So I'm looking through the side mirror, and I said to my driver, I said, how old is that soldier? He says, well, she's about 14. The reason the gun was wobbling, she couldn't hold up the weight of the Kalashnikov machine gun. The reason the soldiers were laughing was watching her in this predicament, because she still had to hold face to be able to deal with what she had to deal with, right? So I was in her workplace, she was in my workplace, and there's something I realized at that point in time, is that I will spend the rest of my life trying to find ways not to have someone push a machine gun down up someone's nose again. And I committed myself to that, and it'll pick up through stories I'll share with you and why I'm giving you the presentation today. So one of the themes of this presentation is around mentoring. So she is my 3-minute mentor. She changed my career. I looked at the world very differently because of that 3 minutes with her. So I just like to share that with you from a point of relevance, so you might understand where I'm going to actually end up going as we move through this presentation. So I'm an educator and a decision mentor. So I'm not a coach. What I do is I mentor. And what I'll do is I'll help people figure out better decisions. What are the decisions you need to make, whether in life or in business? But also, all right, I'm attempting to help you understand that the decisions you make are an indication of how you're going to be the best for the world. So the everyday decisions that you do make are important because today is based on yesterday's decisions. Therefore, tomorrow is based on today's decisions. I believe they're at the heart of us living our great lives, is the decisions that we make. And is there a way in which to improve that decision making? That's another little underlying theme that's going through this presentation. But what I'm going to share with you today is around connecting mentoring, portfolio, career, and get you to think about how do I acknowledge, advance, and accelerate what I know and can do, using this concept of competency and competency you see on the bottom. So I'm going to build a story around that and get you interacting in that story. Sound good? All right, so to start off with, I have the 3 A's. So I want you to know that the A's are well here in Canada, okay? A's. First one is to acknowledge. I want to acknowledge that the handouts that you have don't follow exactly the slide presentation, because I wanted to get you a minimum number of slides. So these are the highlight points that you would need to be able to take away. There's some other fillers that I have here. I also want to acknowledge is that you know and can do things. True? You are a wealth of insights. Sometimes we do not celebrate that, is that we sometimes walk around going, well, I really don't know. What have I got to offer? I hear this from people. Oh, come on. You've got so much to offer. You have so much lived experience. And there's people who are tapping into it. I'd like to share with you, in today's world, there is what's called a mentor marketplace. So the myth that mentoring is for free no longer exists. I charged for being a mentor. People can tap into my lived experience. I'm willing to do it, but I will not coach. Okay? And if you want to know what coaching and mentoring the difference is, we can talk about that a little bit later. I just want to sort of run this mentoring story through. I also want to acknowledge is that to advance your career, by acknowledging what you know and can do, you can then figure out, if I know this and I can do that, but I don't know how to do this and don't know how to do that. Oh, let me take a stretch assignment and let's see what I can learn to add that into what I can acknowledge of what I know and can do. So you can advance your career. And I'm thinking, through this question, I think I know what the answer is, but I'm going to ask, are you in the room looking to advance your career? Yes. Even if it's you're going to transition yourself out into your second 50 career. And it may not be doing what you are doing currently. There's people doing some really beautiful things in the world, and it has nothing to do with what they spent the first 30 years doing. The other thing is, how do you then accelerate this? How can you accelerate what you know and can do based on the advancement? How can you get that flywheel moving just a little bit quicker for yourself? And I have some examples of that as we go through, and that's what we're going to tap into in the story we're creating. So let me just share with you what a mentor is. A mentor is a guide on the ride. It's one of the best ways that I can describe it. You're on the ride with the person. The mentor answers questions from lived experience. Catch the wording here. Lived experience. Lived experience. Because we always used to associate mentoring with someone older working with someone younger. It's not the case anymore. There's something called reverse mentoring. Someone younger may know something that the older person doesn't know. So let's call this lived experience. What you're doing is you're sharing from your lived experience. Social media, if you're older, you may not know social media as well. So there's something that you can be learned, something you can be mentored on. So if we use the phrase lived experience, then we're talking about tapping into that lived experience. So you've heard me use that phrase. Let me ask you in the room, how many of you have lived experience? Everyone put your hands up. Yes, you do. All right. And there's people who are looking to tap into that. Please know, people want to tap into your lived experience. No matter what your age is, there are people who want to tap into it. You go to the youth, what they're talking about in the youth is that there's this notion of peer-to-peer mentoring. But it doesn't quite work for the youth. They want someone who has some lived experience that they can tap into because they want to get at the emotional range of things. What is it like? What does it feel like? You know? What happens when you make a mistake? They want to know it from that angle. A mentee is the person who is asking for a mentor. Sometimes you can call it a learner, protege, there's a number of different names, but it's someone who's looking for this access to this lived experience is called a mentee. And if they're showing curiosity and asking really great questions, you can set up a really awesome mentoring arrangement. I'm 1,000 some into mentoring arrangements that I've had over the years. Right? From all different things, from solopreneurs, infopreneurs, to people who are senior managers and transportation companies. Right? Just depending on where it is that they would like to access my lived experience. So I think I've got something to give to the boomers, being that I am a boomer and I do have mojo. And so I think that's one of the reasons I'm going into that area of work. So on your sheet, there's a slide that says, your mentors, who's a mentor. What I'd like you to do is in the your mentors area, put down the initials of the people who have mentored you. It's their initials. You're not going to be describing this person. This is for you. Who has mentored you? Now remember, I've had a 3-minute mentor. I just call her my Ugandan soldier because I don't know her name. And it doesn't always have to come from work. It may come from what you volunteer to do. It may come from any leisure, recreation activity. Someone has mentored you in how to play a different sport, okay, or take up an activity. It comes from family and friends. Just put down the initials of some people who've mentored you. Then obviously you can put the initials of the people that you have mentored. If not, just think about how many times have I mentored people? And think about the times you've been at the water cooler and someone has come up and asked a question of you, and you spent the time giving them the answer, not the quick answer, but the ability for them to tap into your lived experience, because that is mentoring as well. So this notion of duration can be very small, it can be very long. That's why there's a mentor marketplace out there. All right, we've got something to work with. You've got some ideas there. So just very quickly to yourself, just appreciate all the people who mentored you, and just appreciate all the people that you've mentored. Because you made a great contribution to the world. And I just want to acknowledge that. I want to advance the fact that you're doing that, and I encourage you to do more of that. And if you can accelerate that in some way, then please do that. The next page over, or on the little lines that you have there, what I want you to do is put on one of the two hats. So I'm going to ask you, okay, I'm going to put my mentor hat on and answer this question, or I'm going to put my mentee hat on and answer this question. So the question is, list 3 points of learning or actions you took as a result of your mentoring arrangement. So if I was a mentor, what's the 3 things that I learned being a mentor? And what actions did I take? Or I was a mentee, and these are the 3 things that I learned from talking to my mentor and the actions that I took. Either way, but don't do both. We don't have time to do both. So just choose one hat and answer the question. We have these 2 things called learning and action, do we not? I learned something, and then I'm going to take an action. Because of that action, I'm going to learn something. I learned something, I'm taking that action. That action, I learned something. It's sort of chasing itself all the time. So maybe what happened is you came up with the statement you did, and it's about the learning, but it may also connect with action. So let me give you an example of one that I went through. I was mentoring, so I'm wearing my mentor hat, with a mentee. And they came and they wanted to talk about decision-making and ethics. Because they were in a bit of a pickle at work. And they wanted to know a little bit more about this thing called ethics, but they knew it came down to their decision-making, and they were sort of, they were in a quandary, and they needed some assistance. So I started to work with them, right? And so what happens, the actions, they started to pay more attention to the decision-making ethics that were going on in the workplace. It's the same kind of idea like you're going to buy a red car. So you start paying attention to cars, and what do you start to see a lot of? Red cars. It's the same kind of idea. They started to really pay attention to the decision-making and the ethics that were in there. And what I did was I helped them understand is that there's 7 main ethics in the workplace. And that was great for them because they took all of this stuff that we were talking about and they go, oh, okay, I can see, oh, right, that's where that, oh, right, that's where that, oh, so I could start to see it, they could start to build their picture, and then how are they influencing it from a decision-making point of view. So that's just my example of working it through. So, I'm going to turn now to the world of competency and competence. Now, how many of you heard those words in the workplace? Yeah. So this is the way that I'm looking at competency, and this is going to play itself out because I'm going to come back to the ideas you just wrote down here. So competency is a statement including a measurable action verb and what it's acting on. That's how I write up a competency. So let me give you an example. Demonstrate ethical decision-making. What's the actionable verb? Demonstrate. What's it acting on? Ethical decision-making. So what I'm asking someone to look at from a competency point of view is, can you demonstrate ethical decision-making? Now, in my mentor relationship with that mentee, I wasn't coaching for them to be accountable to be demonstrating ethical decision-making. I was just talking about them demonstrating it. So I was only sharing insights to help them formulate. If I was coaching them, I could have actually spent time working with them to actually get them to prove to me that they actually have demonstrated. Okay, so there's one of the little differences. It's a small, nuanced difference. You might go, yeah, so. But it actually is very different because of the different kind of relationship that you'll have with the person. Now I'm just going to turn competency to competence for a second. So competence is to confirm your knowledge of the concepts and application of the skills as outlined in the competency statement. The competency statement says, demonstrate ethical decision-making. Competence would be, can I confirm that I can demonstrate ethical decision-making? Not just talk about it, not go to a book and look it up. Is that, can I demonstrate ethical decision-making? In other words, am I competent to demonstrate ethical decision-making? Okay, so you see the difference between the concept of competence and competency? Okay there? It's going to play out here in a second, so just hang in there with me. Remember, we're building a story, a bit of an interactive journey. Okay. So, demonstrate ethical decision-making. So some of the things that you would need to be competent around to be able to have that is, okay, I got to define ethics. So I got to use decision-making. I got to identify situations for ethical decision-making. There's a number of little sub-points to be able to prove that you can demonstrate ethical decision-making. Make sense? Right? Because if it only was discuss ethical decision making, yeah, you can be competent to that, but there's a lot more to it. Right? What we're going to do is work with you in some of your competency examples. Because I think that you will find that if you work this, you will be able to acknowledge, advance, and accelerate your career. But it requires a little bit of work, a little bit of effort. So, I'm going to get you to write at least 3 examples. And it has to have an action verb to start it and what you're acting upon. Remember the action verb, demonstrate? It's acting upon ethical decision. To acknowledge, advance, and accelerate your career, I just stated this, but I'm going to state it again. I am competent to. If the verb is a measurable verb, you should be able to say yes or no. Because of all the things that you know and can do, and you wrote them down as an action verb, what you're acting upon, and you were to start creating that for yourself, and you went into a job interview, you would already have in your mind what I'm competent to, so when they start to ask questions, you can respond. Not wait in a reaction to the question. You can be proactive, ready to go. You can do it. That's how you advance your career. But guess what? You can now use this to accelerate your career because you can go, you know what? But there is something I would really enjoy learning how to do because a lot of people who are hiring you also want to know, where do you want to advance yourself? Because one of the great things about being in organizations today is the learning and development that's offered. You said it again in your presentation earlier, Julia, right? The notion of engagement and retention is around the learning and development aspect. You may not know everything. Be honest up front, but yet you're willing to learn that when you're in that job. Great! I would really appreciate that if you're sitting on the other side from me and talking to me. I'm going, yeah, all right, we can get somewhere with this. This is what I encourage you to do, is create what is called a portfolio. I actually prefer the term product folio, and you'll see why here in a second. I encourage every one of you in the room, even if you are employed by yourself, to create a portfolio. What's a portfolio? It's a tangible, practical record of what you have done. It's the artifacts that give proof that you've done something. If you've written a report, and it's a great report and can be shared, in other words, it doesn't go into confidentiality and proprietary and all that, but even if all you do is took a picture of the front of the report and said, see, my name is on it, the logo's there, I'm competent on that report. Someone might say, well, you're competent writing a report. Are you competent about what's in the report? Yes, I am. You can go to explain the kind of things as well. So keeping track, artifacts, what you've done. So let me give you an example for me. I was working on becoming tenure as a professor. And then I saw the light and got out of that too. That's one of my careers that I went through now. But what we have to do is we have to keep track of even our thank you notes. If someone sent us a thank you note, we have to put that into our portfolio. So when we went through the tenure process, they could prove is that we're actually interacting and people are thanking us, and it shows a different level of interaction. And it may have been because I'm just a really nice guy and they like me, but it had nothing to do with the process, right? But it was one of the pieces, and all brought together, it forms up. You know how artists carry around the black It's a portfolio. Just so they can show you're doing the same thing. So the idea is the means by which you can tell what you've achieved and you've accomplished. And what it does is it provides you with authority. You are the author of your career. Don't let someone else author your career. You author your career, show the authority that you have, but also at the same time, there comes a point where you might go, I still don't know this piece. I'm willing to go. So think about that from a mentor-mentee relationship. What the mentor is doing is saying, I got this lived experience, I've authored this in a sense, and the mentee wants to tap into that authority, that authorship. And if you're a really great mentor, what you're able to do is turn that around and have the mentee author the work. What happens, you get into this really great cycle of working with women. Now, there's something called a process-folio in your book. But what I want to make a point is about your reflection about what you've done. You could list out and say, okay, I've done this report, okay, I've drilled these holes, I've done this, I've done that, okay, I've driven a car and I can prove it, here's my driver's license, and da-da-da-da-da. But what is it that you have learned from gaining that knowledge and doing those things? We take that for granted. Please don't take it for granted. Sit down and just start documenting what you are reflecting upon about what you know and can do. I'm just going to share the following with you. I believe that that is leaving our workplace, is understanding the reflections of our learning and knowing. We're just getting into the world of how. And that's such a shame, because there's so much more richness there for us in living our great lives. Remember I said 3 minutes with that mentor shifted how I look at, I know why I reflect on things. I would encourage you to do the same thing, because that's what's going to help you acknowledge, advance, and accelerate your career. Because people are going to look at you and go, hey, you're an author of your own career, and you got some authority. I can tap into that. I like that. I want you in my section to work with. I want to promote you to whatever it might be. Might be, I really like, I'm thinking you're an entrepreneur. Yeah. Is that why you were talking about the businesses? Yeah, okay. So being able to then show up when you go to write your proposal or go into that presentation, like, I know what I know and I can do what I can do, and I'm going to put this on the table. Here's some ways to prove that. Right? This is my things I share. So basically, the process-folio just highlights what you've done, what you're doing, and maybe what you're going to do. So yes, you got the product, but you also got what you have learned. Get that down. So here's a couple of ideas for you. You can do it from a offline physical binder. You put it in the binder, right? Take pictures, and it goes. Okay. Carry it to the meeting, carry it into your interview, whatever you want. You could create it. I think when you start becoming competent 3D printing, it may be a little bit harder to bring in the fender of the vehicle, but you still could. You create a picture. Right? But the idea being is that you're bringing in these products, these things that are tangible to touch. But you can also do it on an online, and it's accessible. And you use things like video, and you can show someone like a 1-minute video. I send proposals now using video. I don't write them anymore. I send a person a video with some hand drawings of what it is that I want to do with people, and they love it because they don't have to read through a whole bunch of horse malarkey. Right? They just, okay, you cut into the chase, this is what you're going to do, da-da-da-da-da. I can see the model you want to work with. Great, thanks very much. Right? If you're applying for a job, why don't you send them a little video of the things that you know and you can do? Advance, accelerate. So, take it in on your laptop, your iPad, and show them things. So what I've attempted to do to this presentation to get you to understand how to acknowledge, advance, and accelerate. If you acknowledge that you have that competence based on the competencies, how are you going to feel? I'm here. Right? You know what? I can use these to advance where I'm going, because I'm going to go, oh, hang on a minute, there's something I'm still missing the job I'm going after. Let me go get that and bring it together, or make a presentation saying I'll do it while I'm in the job. I'm advancing myself. I'm not slowing it down, I'm advancing. And therefore, if you're doing all of that, you're accelerating that. So the idea is, career's yours. You can do it through mentoring, and I would encourage each one of you to give some time as a mentor, or go find a mentor. Create your process-folio and portfolio, and have it ready to go, so you can acknowledge, advance, and accelerate.